Welcome to the Good Success Podcast, where we encourage and challenge purpose-driven entrepreneurs to create, build, and maintain profitable businesses so they can have more to give more. Our motto is to be a conduit, not a bucket. Work to have to give. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Good Success Podcast. I am your host, Tom Olson, and I am really excited about today's show. I've got John Miles, who's actually in Canada right now. He's up in the Northwoods. It's probably beautiful up there while most of the United States is scorching hot and there's 100-degree temperatures that we're hearing in different areas. He's probably sitting in nice 80-degree weather, just kind of chilling and relaxing up there in Canada. But he's got a business, and I just found it. I just found him through other people recommending him, and I was like, man, this is something really cool. So we have a really cool podcast today. If you ever kind of thought to yourself, man, I want to build a website, but I don't know the first thing about websites, and I don't really want to pay thousands of dollars for a website just to kind of have something. You want to make sure that you pay attention to today's podcast, because John Miles has a company that gives out free websites. Are you kidding me, John?
No, I'm not kidding. Now we do it as a way to try and build relationships, and we know that if we can build a good website for people in the beginning, and it doesn't take a ton of time because we have our systems pretty well nailed down, then we know, we can build good relationships for people who will need more work down the road. So that's the whole sort of idea behind the business.
So that's awesome. And we're going to get right back to John in just a minute here. But I, as you guys can see, I'm really excited about this. I think it is the perfect way to do exactly what he just said, is to build relationships. And it's a way for me, I even have this event every year called the Community Go-Giver. And it's really a way, if you've read the book, The Go-Giver, it's really a way to be able to give first. And, I love John Miles' mindset about the way that he's making that work for his customers. And I'm really excited to have today's podcast. So if you guys, know Good Success, and if you guys have been listening to the podcast for any short period of time, you guys know that we are not all focused on just making a bunch of money and leaving this world with a big house and a bunch of bars of gold. For us, at Good Success, we're more focused on the kingdom and more focused on really helping other people. God said, if you obey these two laws, the rest of the law will happen. Number one, love God, and number two, love others. And if you love others, it's just like loving me. And it's really amazing. And one of my thoughts that I kind of had this morning as I was just kind of getting ready for this podcast and kind of thinking through this is, the world itself is kind of turned upside down. But we don't have to be that way. We can, in some respects, ignore that. But I think the reason why that we're seeing this happen is because it's just so interesting. It's like lies spread super fast. But for some reason, the truth and the things that are good and wholesome don't seem to spread as fast. So I think the lesson that I hope to portray, and I hope to kind of encourage everybody to do today, is when you hear something, don't all of a sudden necessarily think that it's true. How many cases have we seen now where literally an entire city or blocks of cities are getting burned down, all because somebody heard bad information. Somebody heard that somebody was innocent and they got shot. And then come to find out, well, the guy literally just raped a 14-year-old and the cop was there to actually arrest the guy. It's just, you have to be very careful about what you listen to, and you have to be very careful about taking action on something quickly. So just make that as some kind of an encouragement today. My pastor has a statement: stay low and go slow. And sometimes that is the best route. I know even Dave Ramsey, when he talks about, buying in cash and moving on, it's like, it might be a slower snowball, but eventually it gets bigger, and it really sometimes is the best way to go. But just keep in mind, truth for some reason travels slowly, and lies for some reason travel quickly. So and also I think that that's a lesson to us as well, to not necessarily push out lies, and not necessarily, and know what you're saying is true before you go and spread that as well. So I'm just going to just leave it there, and just encourage you guys to just focus on what's really true, and keep a level head about what everybody's doing today. So I'm going to get back to John. So John, thank you so much for taking some time and investing in our audience today. I have a ton of questions. We're probably not going to be able to get to them all today, but why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll just start from there.
Sure. So I'm a Canadian, as you mentioned, and my entrepreneurial story, I guess, started when I graduated university. I started getting involved in some brick and mortar businesses here in Canada, and I really enjoyed that. And then about 3 years ago, I had an opportunity to sell my ownership in these couple businesses that I was involved in, and it just gave me some freedom. And so I thought, okay, what do I want to do with sort of my next step in life? And so I decided that I was going to move down to South America, at least for 8 months or so. And my main goal was just to experience a different culture, learn another language. And then I knew that I wanted to also start another business. So I thought, okay, I'll take this time, go down to South America, just bring my laptop with me, and see what comes of it. So yeah, so I moved down to South America. I ended up meeting my now business partner, who's an American, but he's living down there. And we started an outsourcing business. It's coming on 3 years ago now. And that's done well. And we've really enjoyed that process. And then within that, we started hearing lots of people coming to us and saying, hey, I need a website. And we thought we can take the skills that we've developed here with the outsourcing business, and the access to amazing workers and amazing people who can develop websites. And we can spin this into a web development agency that just focuses on the web development side. And we thought, well, yeah, if we can systematize this, build people websites for free, it'll just be a great way of building relationships. And then when people need work down the road, or if they know someone who needs work down the road, then they're going to tend to come to us if we've done a good job. So yeah, it's a little bit about me and sort of where this business came from.
So you've developed a system to be able to create websites for people, where you can systemize it so much where you can offer it for free, even though it's going to cost you something up front.
Yeah, exactly. So it takes us probably 7 to 10 hours to build a website for free. And what we say, and so with that, like, what we build websites in WordPress, and WordPress has amazing templates. So we advise people on what template to choose, and then we get that loaded in. And yeah, as I say, in 7 to 10 hours, we can get somebody set up with a good website that's mobile optimized, looks really good. And then the one thing we ask is just that they get website hosting, which costs a couple dollars a month, from one of our website affiliate partners. The affiliate partners pay us a small commission for referring the person, and that helps cover some of the development costs, so that it's not a huge loss for us when we build the website. And then, as I say, like, a certain percentage of those people come back to us, and they may need I don't know, some maintenance down the road, or they may have a new business that they want to work on. And so they've got another website idea that's more complex. Or on the website we built for them, maybe they want to add on some fancy features. And then we can do that work and build those relationships for paid work down the road, as I say.
So you've had the VA company for 3 years, it sounds like, right?
How long have you been,
How long have you been focusing on, or how long have you had this kind of almost like ancillary piece of that, which is kind of like more or less a lead gen piece for you? But like, how long have you been focusing on the website process and doing free websites for people?
So we started it as like a business in January. So that'd be like 8 months, more or less. So it was a transition because we're making lots of websites for people through the outsourcing business. And so we did a bit of testing the idea and said, okay, we think we can, but can we actually build a process where we can build websites for 7 to 10 hours that people are going to be happy with for the right type of people. It's not for everybody. Like some people need complex websites, and we say to people, okay, like we've got an application form. We don't accept everybody. And so we take a look at the website and say, okay, is this a good fit for our process? Is the person going to be happy at the end of it, or do they need something that's just outside of the scope of what we can build for free? So yeah, it does happen where people come and say, okay, well, I need a website that has all these bells and whistles. And we just say, okay, this isn't the best fit for what we do. We can build the first part of that, and you can take it and you can get somebody on Fiverr or Upwork to finish it off, or you can have us finish it off. We don't, like, for the more complex parts, we don't put any pressure on people for that extra work. And yeah. So we started just, sorry, I got off track there, but we started testing the business through our outsourcing business and saying, okay, can we put this system together, take some of these clients that need simpler websites and actually build them a site that they're going to be happy with. And we had a really good success rate with it in the beginning. Essentially everybody was happy. And then since then we've honed the process and got better at just knowing, sanding the rough edges off the process, so to speak. So knowing what parts take longer, what parts people say, oh yeah, like it'd be better if you could do it this way. And so we're constantly tweaking it, but it's pretty good at this point.
That's awesome. So really, so you just started this in January, right?
Yeah.
Now your website says that you've done 300 websites. Have those all been done since January?
Yeah, we've actually done more than that. We just haven't website.
How many did you say you've done?
And a lot of websites 7 days a week, 10, 12 hour days. So we've done a fair number of websites, and that would be all since January. Yeah.
All right. So I just lost you there. So we're going to just start over with that question.
Sure. Oh,
hey, John,
turn my video. Hey, yeah. Sorry, I think that's my internet. It's
okay.
I guess a little hit and miss.
I'm still recording.
You can hear me okay?
I'm still recording here, so I believe that it is going to capture that first one. So let's just kind of roll as if it did, and then Amelia will edit this. But I'll go back to that same question, and then we'll go from there. So hopefully we're good.
Yeah,
I'm not the tech guy as much around here. Amelia's working virtually today, so but I think we're good. So let's just go back to that question. All right.
Sure. So what was the question again?
I'll get it here. It's 300. You've done 300, and then you kind of went on about you've done more than that.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're telling me since January you've done already 300 websites for people this year.
Yeah, we have a pretty big team. I think it's around 5 full-time developers now. And then I work a lot. I work 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. So helping out, I do some of the development and then just some of the more complex stuff. So yeah, we can get a lot done, and we've done 300 at least. I think it's more sites than that, but yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So really and I'm assuming that through that, so let's kind of get back to business. So we talked about the free websites, and we're gonna get to it, guys. Trust me, everybody right now is listening. Like, how in the world do I get a free website? I need this guy in my life. It's funny. Even last night I was on Facebook, and people were talking about like, how in the world do I do all this? And I'm just like, I posted on there, I'm doing a podcast tomorrow with a guy that does free websites. And so if you think about it, back to the business aspect of this, obviously there's not a lot of money in giving free websites out. It's actually like a cost. But if you think about the cost of lead generation, it's pretty much just your marketing, costs. And you're obviously not doing a ton of marketing and ton of ad spend to tell. I didn't even hear, from an ad. I heard, from a referral. Yeah. And, I'm assuming that's the goal here. That's what you meant to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's worked well for us in the outsourcing business. We started that like we were doing other things. My business partner had two really successful online businesses, and I was doing consulting. Um, but we started that. We started our outsourcing business actually as just a way to help with the crisis going on in Venezuela. We were both living in Buenos Aires and had met a lot of Venezuelans who had fled the country, and we're hearing their stories of everything that was going on in Venezuela. And we said, well, we can do something here. We're in an interesting position because we're both North American entrepreneurs, so we've got contacts back home and all that sort of thing. But we're down here in South America, and we've got now friends and contacts looking for work. And so we said, well, why don't we just make some connections? We can, yeah, do it informally on the side, and it'll just be something we can feel good about, giving people Venezuelans work who don't have that same opportunity because of what's going on with the crisis in their country. And it went really, really well. And we had lots more people from back home, friends of the initial people we'd set up, saying, hey, do you have more workers down there that you can connect us with? Because we've heard really good things about X person. And then we had the workers saying to us, hey, like I've got a brother, or I've got a cousin or a friend that's looking for work. Can you connect them? And so we sort of realized it wasn't some genius plan. It was just, we started this to do something on the side that we would feel good about, and we felt like was the right thing to do. And it just took off with word of mouth because of that. And so that was a good lesson for us that that if you do good work and if you do good work and you're trying your best and you're not trying to eke every last dollar out of it, then actually you will do well with word of mouth and referrals. And so that's the whole principle that we said, okay, this has worked really well for us in this other business. Let's try it here with the web development. And so that's what we've been doing. And yeah, it's been great, because otherwise there's so many web development agencies out there, and people get messages through their websites all the time saying, oh, hey, like I can fix up your website for whatever, $500. But how do you know? Like there's such a risk of hiring somebody and having a bad experience that everyone's gun shy, and they're like, okay, well, the $500 may or may not be a ton of money, but who wants to go through that experience of spending all this time working with somebody and then the end result isn't good? So this is an opportunity for us to say, you don't need to trust us. Because we'll prove to you that we can do a good job. And if we don't, then you just cancel your website hosting. You got 30 days. So if we haven't produced something for you in 30 days, you've lost nothing. So yeah, that's our idea, is just to stand out in that sense. And it's worked quite well for us.
It's really good. I'll tell you what. And that's why when I got on this podcast this morning, I was like, I am really excited about this podcast. And, we've had a lot of great podcasts lately. We really have had some amazing people. But it's kind of interesting that you didn't even think of it like this when you started. You just said, hey, we're just trying to do a good work. We're just trying to have good success. We're just trying to help people. I mean, really, like, my next question here is kind of, you've already answered, is, how did you get started in this? Why did you get started, and why do you do this? And you kind of already summed that up with, we found a need. I didn't really have to do this. But I found a need, and I found people that needed work. And I said, hey, I also I already know people somewhere else. Why don't I just be a conduit and connect that person to the person that might need these people's services? And now you're to the point where you're like, instead of spending money on lead gen, well, let's just make people so happy that they have no better thing to do other than to tell all their friends that, hey, go to the free website, guys. And that's really like how I found you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you can't make everybody happy, but we try our best to get as close as we can. And if you look at reviews on Trustpilot and Clutch and Facebook, I think we've got one bad review out of, like, I don't know, several hundred. So yeah, we're definitely doing the best that we can, and always trying to improve things.
Yeah. And it's always interesting thing, because you even know about that one. So like, so somebody that really cares about their name and cares about doing a good job, that one, like, is a big deal. And that's the same way it is for me. Every time I, like, even, in our vacation rentals, if we get 1 4-star review instead of a 5-star review, me and my wife are just like, so upset about it, but it's just like we strive so much and so hard. And I love talking to people like you that have that same kind of mindset, and you really do care about the service offering that you're offering. But really back to the marketing, and you hit the nail on the head. I don't know how many LinkedIn messages I have right now, probably hundreds, literally hundreds from marketing companies. It's like, oh no, here's another marketing sales person that wants me to do something, or, whatever it is. And what you've done is you've created the opposite effect, where now, like, you've done 300 websites, those 300 or 500 websites, or how many ever you've done. I'm assuming that has turned into more actual paid, work from maybe not all 300 of those, or maybe not all 500 of those, but there's probably some kind of percentage. Are you guys tracking that data to kind of figure out, what this is getting you, or I'm assuming it's a good return.
Yeah. So we sort of set a threshold and said, okay, what percentage of people do we need to come back and use this down the road for this to be worthwhile? And we did a test, and we passed that by a decent margin. And that's without, as I say, that's without pushing it, because the thing that we run up against is people think we're a scam. And I get it, because they're like, well, this is too good to be true. And so we really try not to push people to use us. We just let them know, okay, we're here. These are our prices. If you want to use us, I think we send one email out after their website's done and just say, yeah, these are our prices. These are the other things we offer. And that's it. If people want to use us, that's great. If they don't, that's great as well. That's fine. Yeah. And we've had enough people use it that it's been worthwhile. And we're confident that, because it's early stages, we're confident that more people will come back after 6 months or a year and say, and it's happened. Yeah. It's happened a bunch where they say, oh yeah, I just realized I've got this other idea, or my wife has a business idea and I thought you could set her up a website, or that sort of thing. So I'm sure that it's just the repeat business is going to continue to grow as time goes on.
Yeah. And you've only been doing this since January. So like I feel like you're going to get to a point where you're going to have to figure out how to scale that business so fast that's going to create a different problem for you probably at some point.
It already is. Yeah. We've had to go from, in the beginning, I was doing all the development when we were testing it out. And as I say, now I think we have 5 full-time people, and we're trying to hire more. So yeah, that's maybe the biggest problem, is just finding good people that fit in with the team dynamic and that sort of thing. So,
it's interesting in the business world, there's 2 things that we as entrepreneurs should always be focused on when it comes to our customers. Number one, what are the things that are going to change over the next 25 years? And yes, I do think that we already have self-driving cars. We if you think about the technology and where we're going, so there are things that are going to change. And I think as entrepreneurs, we always want to put ourselves in the way to be able to not take advantage of people, but take advantage of the opportunity that's going to happen from the way that the world changes. If you think about blacksmiths 100 years ago, they were probably the most valuable person in the town. But now it's like, how many blacksmiths are there really around? So life changes. But the second thing that we also should be thinking about as entrepreneurs is what's not going to change. And I'll be honest with you, one of those things that's not going to change is people don't want to pay more for websites.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people are going to, what's not going to change is that people aren't going to want to do more for something. So, whatever it is, if you could put yourself in the way of that kind of wave as well, it could definitely also help a lot of people. And I think it's a good focus. So this has been exciting. I'm really happy, and I appreciate your time that you've been, doing this. You may have mentioned this already a little bit, but is there some kind of greater purpose, or, why do you do what you do? Because obviously you've already sold a business. You kind of already have, been at least, I don't really know, but at least somewhat of a successful entrepreneur. You sold a business enough to be able to at least not work for 8 months and kind of go learn a language and do all that. And a lot of us get to that point in our life where maybe we're financially free. We don't really have to do it for the money to survive. But we have a greater purpose. And I just didn't know, is there a reason why? Is there something bigger that's driving, this whole business for you?
Well, yeah, I think it was, like I mentioned, it was when I was down in Buenos Aires.
and I still spend a lot of my time, the most of my year, down in South America, between Argentina and Colombia. But you see a lot of people who have fled Venezuela in particular, and heard the stories, and it was just so in our face. And we had friends, one guy, Enrique, who now he's one of our business partners in our other business, but he had fled Venezuela, and hearing his stories of like his wife was pregnant and they needed medication, and he ordered it, and then the person sent fake medication, so took his money and sent, and you hear that stuff, and then just seeing like the struggle of him having to like leave his family behind, go with his wife to Buenos Aires so they could have their baby in a country that had relatively better medical care. And you're just like, yeah, this just comes down to where we were born. Like he's about the same age as me. He went to college and has a 6-year degree in business, so he's super smart, and he just reminds me of all my friends. But yet he hasn't had the same opportunities. And so you see that, and it just made myself and my business partner Jeb think, well, what can we do to like help people like Enrique out? And we're just, because we're in a unique situation, why don't we just do this as something we can feel good about? And it'll be a little bit fun too. It's just something different than focusing on a business that's all about making money. So yeah, Jeb and I were in a unique position where we had some freedom with time, and we had some freedom economically as well. So we just said, yeah, why don't we take advantage of that and just do this and see what comes of it. And that was really it. And when it started going really well, and we got messages from the workers telling us, so we were primarily hiring Venezuelan workers, and we got messages from workers saying like, this has changed my life. People were able to save up enough money to leave Venezuela and move to other countries in South America, for instance, and just having the security to know that they would have a job when they left Venezuela, when they landed in Chile or Argentina or Colombia. They weren't going to have to look for work. They could continue working with us. And just seeing that firsthand, that we were able to make a difference in people's lives, spurred on that feeling of just, we're doing something we can feel good about. And so let's keep that going. So that was really where it came from. It wasn't, as I say, it wasn't like some genius idea. It was just something we did on the side that they were like, yeah, we've got some time. Let's do this. And it went really well. And so it just grew from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. You kind of keep going back to that to a certain degree. But one of our mastermind members, Quincy Long, who owns Quest IRA, he has a statement that rings true over and over and over again. And his statement is that bigger is not always better, but better will always lead to bigger. So if you're really doing a good work, if you're really doing something that's good for somebody, and you're doing good work in it as well, you're not, even if you're not trying to be bigger, it's just going to be bigger because you're actually doing a good work. So I really appreciate that heart, and I really appreciate you trying to help other people in other countries. It's one of those things that, at Good Success, we are focused on. I have missionary friends all around the world. And even in 2020, like, we think we have it bad in the United States. Well, we're literally a bunch of spoiled brats in the United States compared to the way that some other countries have it. Talking to somebody that's a missionary in Laos right now, and like, they get 60% of their produce from the country next to them. And when you close borders, like, the people are literally starving to death because our borders are because of borders being closed. I mean, it's real. This isn't just like, a TV infomercial that you see, to try to help somebody. Even I can't even send money to them to get the food because they can't get it. I have another friend of mine who actually works for me. He actually helps run my Podio. He helps build Podio, and he kind of helps keep all my systems that I use in Podio. And I pay him a monthly retainer, but he's a missionary down in Peru, which is South America, down there by you guys. And, at least in his country, they can go out and buy food and then actually give it to the people that their church helps for. So, but definitely keep that in mind. Have you read the book Outliers by chance?
I have. It was a long time ago,
okay.
So I'm not super familiar.
But it's interesting because Outliers literally says, almost word for word what you just said, that it's just about the opportunity that we were given because we were, born in a certain area. And it's something that it's something we should be thankful for. It's something that we should cherish and we should think about and be appreciative for our parents, and be appreciative really to God even about the opportunities that we have, because everybody doesn't have that opportunity. And I love the fact that you are really trying to help focus and helping those people. And that's kind of the purpose behind what you do.
Yeah. When that's what I love about traveling is just you hear that when you're growing up in a wealthy country like the US and Canada, you hear that and you're like, oh, you should be thankful for growing up in this country because you have so much opportunity. But you can't really put that into context. I found, or I wasn't able to put it into context until I went to other countries, and I'm like, whoa, like people who I become friends with in these other countries, and you do actually see, you're like, wow, their life is, or some parts of their life are so much more difficult. Like with inflation, for instance, in both Argentina and Venezuela is horrible, but the inflation rate is so high that, like, how can you, even if you were able to make enough extra money to save it, it just disappears into nothing because of inflation. And that's the same thing in Argentina. I went down there for the first time, whatever it is, 3 years ago, and then I went back a year later and their currency had dropped in half compared to, or maybe even less than half compared to the Canadian dollar. And I just thought of like, wow, and the US dollar. And I thought, wow, like if for people who are saving money in their own currency, because US dollars are very hard to get in Argentina, like they're I think limited by the government. It's like you just lost half your net worth because of inflation in the last year. So it makes you really see those things in with people that you know, and you're like, wow, I really appreciate that we don't have those issues. You don't have problems. You don't need to wait for 2 hours to get cash out of the bank. Like you just go at the grocery store, there's a bank on every corner, and you take cash out and move on with your day. But yeah, it really makes you realize that those things are true.
Yeah, and it's like, I have another guy who works for me. He's actually from another one of those countries, Costa Rica. And when he came to the United States for the first time, he was like, he had never seen a buffet.
Oh yeah.
He had never seen a grocery store. Like they don't have grocery stores. Like you could just go to the store and buy food. Like it was completely foreign to him. And I think what you said is totally true too. If you guys have never been to another country like this, don't go just on a cruise ship. Don't just go on vacation and stay at the resort. Go actually. I recommend going on a missions trip. I did it when I was in high school to Monterrey, Mexico, and even Monterrey, which is, in Mexico, it's probably a wealthier place. But even in areas like that, we would go up into the villages and visit. And by the time we spent a week with them, these kids that had absolutely nothing, that lived in, I won't say cardboard boxes, but they lived in shacks compared to what we have. They didn't have running electricity, and lived up in these mountains. At the end of the week, like they were so thankful that we came and visited them that they were giving us Americans, they were giving us like pads of papers as gifts, because that's part of their culture, is to give gifts. And it was like they have nothing, but yet they're still trying to give. And it's something that it will really open your eyes really quickly. And I encourage everybody to do at some point in time. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I don't really get into that too much on the podcast too often, but I really appreciate you bringing that up. One thing we do like to ask our podcast guests is, talking about a challenge. I mean, it seems like, yes, you've had probably a fairly, easy go at it, at least from the surface, but there's always a challenge. There's always things that people go through that I think can help inspire and encourage other people down the road. And, we always like to ask our guests, what's one of the biggest challenges you've had in your life? And maybe it's just maybe it's business, maybe it is life, either way. But what's one of the biggest challenges you've had, and how have you overcome it?
Yeah, I'd say one time that stands out in one of the brick and mortar businesses I owned back in Canada. It was doing reasonably well, and then some market factors shifted, and we started losing a ton of money basically overnight. And that was a ton of stress. I would have gone bankrupt if it continued for 6 months, and we had to really reinvent the business and change it, and we're able to, thankfully. But it was such a stressful time. And so that was definitely one of the hardest times for me, because I felt like I was failing at running the business. And it felt like there was no end in sight. So I guess I don't know what the lesson from that, it did work out, but I think just keeping your nose to the grindstone and keeping a positive attitude. And there's always, you'll always live to fight another day.
So what did you do though? So obviously you're here today and obviously you made it through, right? So I think really what we learned is what we ended up doing in order to make it not, I mean, basically, it's 2020. I mean, gosh, like how many businesses are thinking right now and are listening to this right now, going through exactly what you just said that you experienced. And I think to give some encouragement to them or to give some, inspiration to them or even just practical tips, what did you do to get through that time?
Yeah. So there's no one size fits all answer. But the thing that we did, we had to open a new business unit for that business, like a new product or product offering. And we started from scratch and had to build that up until it was profitable. And we were able to, thankfully, and that was a lot of hard work, some luck, all that sort of thing. So I guess as I say, like the lesson that's maybe universal is just keeping in mind, like everybody goes through those times. My mentor is a phenomenally successful business person. He's the one who I worked with and was business partners with for 10 years in Canada before I left. He's phenomenally successful and he's had some really tough times and I just saw from him that like he's had a ton of success, but then he's had things that worked really well in certain areas. And then he moved it to another city and tried to open up the same type of business. And it didn't work out well. And so everybody goes through that and you just need to keep your nose to the grindstone, as I say, and try to mitigate your downside so you don't gamble everything on one business or one business idea, because there's so much that you can't control. So when I hear about people who they haven't been in business before and they've got an idea where they're like, oh, I've got $100,000 and I'm going to invest it in this idea. I try and talk them out of it because there are so many things that can go wrong. And we make so many decisions in our businesses that like we think are going to be amazing. And then it turns out like the world's a hard place to predict. And so if you're right 60% of the time, you're doing well. But if you're right more than you're wrong, then you can head in the right direction, but you got to mitigate your downside. So don't throw all your money down on one business idea. Try and test it before you can, or before you spend any money, or try and spend as little as you can before you've tested or validated a business idea.
John, I think that you're so smart that you don't realize it really. And I think there's a lot of things that I think that you did there. The first thing that you did is, number one, you recognized that the market was shifting, right? Like how many people do we know that really go under because they didn't even recognize it? They just kind of kept doing what they're doing. They had their head in their sand and they didn't even do anything about it. You had the instincts, whether or not you want to admit it or not, and sometimes it's hard for us to kind of go back and pat ourselves on the back that say that we did something good, but really like, it sounded to me that whatever it was that you shifted to in the new business kind of, that you kind of opened up during that kind of led to what the future success was. Am I right?
It was, yeah. It was that new business unit that was making all the money. So in
many respects, it's almost like the success came from this.
It was, yeah. With that business, for sure, that's where we ended up making our money and covering our losses in the other part of the business that was losing money. So yeah, there's no question that opening up that new business unit was the difference between like life and death, and we got lucky that it worked out. And as I say, we worked hard as well.
But it would never have happened if, number one, you didn't recognize it. Number two, you had to have some gumption. You had to have some belief and some courage that you just step out and at least invest something into this new venture. And then, what you said, hard work is definitely, part of this. And I have tried to encourage people all through COVID, even back in April. And even when everything was completely shut down, hey, get up every morning, go to work, focus and focus. You will figure out what to do. And really that's how you got through this. You got through this because you changed when you needed to change. You believed in it. You had the courage, and then you just kept focusing on making these little tweaks to be able to make it happen.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen overnight. So my parents tell this story a lot and laugh now that I'm having some successes, is they say, like, when I was in grade 7, So however old I would have been then, I tried to open up a dog walking business. And so I went and I put flyers up like all over the neighborhood, like went and put them in people's mailboxes, and I got 0 calls. But you got to try these things. I started another business when I was right out of university, and I spent 2 years, it was a software business. And I spent 2 years of like my time on evenings and weekends building it. And it went okay. Like it had success, but it wasn't what I had envisioned, and I hit a lot of roadblocks that I really didn't expect, and it was a lot harder than I expected. But I learned things from those. And business is like any other skill. Like you need to practice. You're not going to just. I don't know. I don't know of anyone who's had like overnight success. Like even the overnight successes are people who have been at it, just doing things that no one knows about for 10 years. And so just treat business like any other skill. And just, you got to work at it and try and learn from what's gone wrong. As I say, I'm really big on trying to businesses that we started with $0. We didn't even have a website for our other business for 6 months. We had, I think, over 100 clients before we even had a website. And we just said, my philosophy is like, you need to spend all your time just trying to find an idea that people want. And then once you find that, you have the wind at your back, the wind in your sails, and then the business will grow and that sort of thing. But it's really hard. That's the hard part. And I've been there where I'm like, okay, I want to start a business, or I have an idea and it's not going well. And it's super hard to put in the time. Like even when I first got to Buenos Aires, I had all the time in the world, but I would like fritter it away because I didn't want to sort of face my computer and trying to start something new, because you're like, yeah, I'm so far off of this getting any traction. So I get that. To me, that's the hardest part, is before you start getting that traction. Once it starts taking off, anybody can work 12 hours a day because there's stuff to do and you don't have to sit there and think, okay, what am I doing next? But it's before you hit that sort of business that's been proven, that's the hard time to come home after work when you've just worked a full day and say, okay, now I'm going to work on a business and that isn't proven and is going to have some frustrating parts. And how do you push through that? That's tough for sure.
Man, I sure hope that everybody has been listening to that. There was so many golden nuggets in what he just said, and it's so true. I don't even have time to go through and repeat all of them. But if you go back and listen to the last 5 or 10 minutes of this, and, he just gave you a lot of business life lessons. One thing that sticks out to me is like, going back to like the wind at your sails, like we don't know when the wind shifts. That's the problem. And there's some times where you've got to get to the island, even though the wind shifted, and you've got to do whatever it takes to get there. But then there's another island that you need to go to. So you also got to create like another boat to be able to get you to that other island. And that's really how business really is in real life. Don't let the gurus teach you that and make you think that it's just going to be an overnight success. There's no such thing as an overnight success. Success is really the journey and learning and being able to then take whatever you've learned to be able to help other people with it. And that's so good. So, we're going to move on here, but thank you so much again for all that. That was really good. Do you have anything right now that you guys are working on? Any kind of special projects or any kind of events or anything that you're wanting to promote at this time?
Not really. Like I'm spending all my waking hours just trying to get the websites that we have on our plate done. So
this just started in January. So this is really your new project right now. Free websites.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. So we split our time between the other business. Like the other business is, we've got around 400 contractors and all that. So it's a good size. And, but we've been able to build it where we've got a really good team. Enrique, the guy I mentioned, he does a lot of work, like running the day-to-day operations, but we spend time on that business and then spend a lot of time on this business, trying to improve the processes, hire new people, and just get the work done.
That's awesome. So if somebody would like to get a hold of you, maybe you're out there saying, hey, I would like a free website. I'd love to be able to check you guys out and see, what you guys can do for me. Do you guys have a website, an event page, a phone number, email? Like what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The best way is just to go to our website, which is thefreewebsiteguys.com. And then we have an application form. We talk about the types of websites that we accept there, and we've got an application form. And we typically get back to people within 2 to 3 days and let them know if they've been accepted for the free website offer. And we try and accept as many people as we can.
So that pretty much is the process. So everybody that's out there listening right now, go to thefreewebsiteguys.com. And if you're watching this on Facebook, we will actually have this linked in the comments below, or we'll have this in the description in YouTube or wherever you guys are watching this. Hopefully you guys can find it, but it's pretty easy to remember, thewebsiteguys.com. And then, really, honestly, guys, I've checked this out myself. It looks pretty easy. So just go there, fill out the application. And then he said within 2 to 3 days, they normally get back to you, kind of let you know, were you approved or not? And they're trying to approve as many people as they possibly can. So, that pretty much sounds like the process, right, John?
Yep, that's the process.
Awesome.
Yep.
And so hopefully you guys will make that happen. Just let them know that you guys heard this on the Good Success podcast. We obviously don't get any kickbacks from that. I'm not trying to get anything from it. I just want to let him know from his own experience, that the Good Success community did come to the table when it came to that. So again, the freewebsiteguys.com, and fill out that application and get your guys a free website. And, maybe you already have a business. I know a lot of people that already have businesses, they're little businesses, and they kind of just need at least some place to be able to send people to maybe connect to ActiveCampaign or connect to something that they can collect their email addresses, or maybe it's just MailChimp, but just something where they can make that happen. At least check these guys out. Again, I've been referred to them, and you guys have got to hear from him all day today. So hopefully you guys will make that happen. We got 2 more questions, John, and I ask everybody that comes on the podcast these questions. You've given us a lot of insight and really a lot of business wisdom, and I really appreciate your investment in our community today. But good success, that you even said it, we had good success. I kind of smiled in the middle of one of your statements. You probably didn't mean to say it, but you said we tried this and we had good success doing it. And I was like, yes, he said good success. He didn't even realize it. But really, for us, good success means something. It's more about the quality of the success instead of the quantity. It's more about the right thing. And so for us, it's obviously way different than what a lot of promoters out there would talk about. You're going to have success and you're going to be able to drive a Lamborghini and go on vacations and have a big house. But so for us, it means a lot, and it means a lot to our audience and our community. But when you hear good success, or when you hear about the right kind of success, what does that mean to you? What does good success mean to you?
For me, good success is being able to spend more time doing things that I enjoy, doing work that I like, because I've seen and feel that when I'm doing work that I like, then I can do better work, and then it ends up leading to better results. And so I found that when I had the freedom, when I first went down to South America, myself and my business partner, Jeb, weren't under the gun to make a lot of money. So when we opened up this new business, because we had that sort of freedom to do something that wasn't about getting rich, we were able to build a better business than if we had sort of like a noose around our neck to make a ton of money. So for me, that it's sort of a flywheel. Once you start doing stuff that you like, once it goes well, and it takes a while, then you get success from that, I feel like, because you're doing better work, and then that opens up more space for you to then be able to do more work that you like and all that. So for me, that's my dream, is just to keep that flywheel turning and do more and more work that I enjoy, and do better work, so that I'm proud of the stuff that I'm turning out and putting out into the world.
It's interesting, at the Good Success Mastermind, we do that exercise probably once a year or so, where we say, draw a line on a piece of paper, and I want you to put everything on the left side that you hate doing and that you're not really good at, and everything on the right side that you're really good at and you love doing, and try to get yourself more on that side, and try to hire people to do those other things. Because believe it or not, I know it's so hard to think about this, but believe it or not, there's people that love to do the things that you hate doing. And if you can figure that out about yourself, knowing yourself, that's what it's about, knowing yourself and knowing what you're really good at, knowing what value you can bring to the world, then helps you get in that more often. And a lot of times I see a lot of coaches give people advice based off of what they're good at instead of what the person that they're giving people advice are. And, that's why, again, we ask one of those questions about, like, what are you really good at, even when people come and present at the mastermind. So that's really awesome. Excellent. I appreciate that. So again, we got one more question, and one more question is it. We've got, when we ask everybody that comes on this audience, we're just trying on this podcast, we're just trying to, just squeeze one more golden nugget from you, or one more life lesson from you. If you had one thing to get out to the world, maybe it's a book that you think people should read, or maybe it's a life lesson that you've learned, or maybe that's a statement or quote, or whatever that is, what would be that one thing that you'd like to get out to the world?
I think I'll go back to business. Like the biggest business lesson I've learned. So I've had a lot of businesses, or tried a lot of ideas that haven't worked, and then I've had some that have worked really well. And when you haven't had that success, you kind of think, oh, this is always going to be a grind. But the truth is, you can hit that point where, as I say, like, you've got the wind in your sails, and then it just starts to take off, and it's fun and yeah. And I just encourage people to keep trying and keep trying to find that. And for us, like, I think the biggest difference was listening to what people want. And so I remember I had a business that I was trying to work on, and I went and to have a meeting with somebody. And this was at the time when we had just started the outsourcing business. And I went to have a meeting with him about my other business. And then I brought up the outsourcing thing, and he's like, oh, tell me more about that. And he ended up hiring a worker from us, like, in that meeting. And to me, I'm like, that was a clear difference between my other business, which just wasn't a great idea, I'll admit it, and it wasn't slated for success. Whereas this other thing, I just mentioned it, and he's like, tell me more about that. And then ended up hiring somebody from us. So there is a big difference once you hit onto these ideas that just are clicking and are things that people want. And so I encourage people to just really try and hone your skills of finding out what the market wants. So you can do research on Google, and there are lots of good tools out there. You can just go and do interviews with, like, your potential clients and run your idea by them and get their reactions. And there's no equation for it, but I encourage people who are into business to really try and hone that skill of, like, knowing, okay, when am I on to an idea that people want? Because if you can spend your whole life if you have an idea that's sort of like half-baked, not quite there, you can spend so much time, and it can be really frustrating. So I encourage people to just, as I say, mitigate the downside and develop that skill of finding out what the market wants. And the feeling of once you finally hit that, it just makes life so much easier. Like, it's easy to grow a business once you find something that people want. So it's not about taking an idea that you think is good and jamming it down people's throats. It's about testing and tweaking until you find out what the market wants, and then you just take off.
Yeah, that's such a great lesson. And I can tell you, even myself, I've had to learn that the hard way several times. You have this old philosophy of, if you build it, they will come. And it's just not really true. Like, you've got to figure out what they want you to build. And then if you build it, they will come. And, you can't just force an idea or an ideal. And I think it's hard sometimes, especially when you know what people need, because there's always a difference between what people need and what people want. And trying to bridge that gap and for me, like, trying to do a business that's actually good for people, and try to give them the best that I can give them in that business. It's always hard for me to differentiate between, like, what I know they really need and what I hear them saying that they want. But having your ears open for what the market really is, and what's in the market, and what people are actually going to buy, and what people actually want at the time is such a good business lesson. And I can't stress that enough.
Great. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, John, for investing in our community. I do want to mention to everybody that's listening to this podcast, if you guys are interested in a virtual mastermind, this year, we've kind of forced ourselves into doing this just because of the market this year, but we still are doing our live events. Absolutely. We did kind of put a pause for 2 months with COVID, but now we're already back to our live events. But this year we have opened up. We've already started selling virtual masterminds. It's 20 calls with the community and other people that kind of invest in the community. We actually ask the mastermind, what do they want? And we say like, okay, we're going to line up calls and teach on these things or with experts in those areas. And then also you get the virtual mastermind. You also get the actual national mastermind boot camps and national masterminds virtually. You don't get to present, you don't get to be part of the community and actually come and meet the people as much, but you do get to watch all those virtually. If you guys are interested in that, just leave a comment below or just message us. Or you guys can go to goodsuccess.com and find out more about us there. One thing I will just end with this. And, if you guys have been helped by the podcast, I'd love for you guys to share this and to tell your friends about it. And also go into iTunes and give us a 5-star review. It would really help us out a lot. So that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. Remember to be a conduit, not a bucket. Work to have to give. God bless. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Good Success Podcast, and we hope to see you on the next one. God bless.